I'm so grateful to share with your viewers about
Yeah.
this really interesting topic about labor law, freelancing, independent contracting work, and so much more. I know a lot of people watching may have thoughts about it. They may be contemplating it. Maybe they are independent contractors themselves. And I think this issue is going to start to have more exposure, especially in 2022. We see a lot of push for labor, whether it's in the form of unionization, allowing contractors to or workers to collectively bargain, things of that sort. So much to discuss, and I'm happy to break down what's trending with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially for purposes of like YouTube, social media, you've got a lot of people that are content creators, influencers that are on in this space that are I mean, they usually have some sort of a very small business themselves, and a lot of times people are hiring out editors, they're hiring out people to make thumbnails for videos, they're hiring out people to do all kinds of little piecemeal things that are part of their whole sort of their whole set of tasks that they have to do in order to run the business that they're running, however big or small it is. You know, whether you're Phil DeFranco and you're running this whole, like, you've got a bunch of people that are like actually, you know, actively regularly working under you, or you're someone a little bit smaller and you're just kind of like, you know, asking for a little bit of help here and there. This is the kind of stuff that could potentially come into play and may have an impact on all of these people, because we're talking about hiring people out as independent contractors in a lot of these situations, unless you're much bigger, like a Phil DeFranco, or, you know, Think Media, some of these other like big channels where people are you know, where they actually have hired employees because they have you know, regular income that's been generated, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think that there is a lot of interest for content creators, as well as for, you know, everyday people that are, let's say you're running an Etsy shop, or let's say you've got, you know, some other kind of a side gig. A lot of people have a lot of things that they're a lot of ways that they're trying to, you know, maximize their income, maximize their you know, overall prospects for their financial future. And so this is one of those ways that these laws can have a really big impact.
And it's really puzzling to me that the very act of people engaging in the so-called freelance economy, or rather the gig economy as it's being billed, I like to lean on more so the freelance economy, not because gig work is a horrible term. It doesn't accurately portray gig workers. You are working multiple gigs. I myself am a freelancer who has multiple gigs, but I work on a
Mhm.
full-time basis. I think people think that you're not working a full-time basis even though you have a higher Rolodex or a bigger Rolodex of clients. But what's puzzling to me is people call this form of work, when you choose to work flexibly, exploitation. Certainly, there are instances of misclassification. I have no doubt there is. And if they are, they have to be rectified and fixed. But to take a minor issue in the big scheme of things and blanket statement, like apply it to every single worker, independent worker especially, or flexible worker, that's going to create a lot of problems. And as you know, in California, we've seen the firsthand effects of what a law like that can do as it relates to how workers are classified. And now workers have to prove they're not employees in California through an ABC test. And I know you'll explain the case that's
Yeah.
sprung this about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's before we get into the individual that we're going to be focusing on, and some of the kinds of laws that he's talked about, and some of the policy changes that he's advocated for in the past, which we can probably expect him to advocate for in the future. Let's talk a little bit about your background. So what do you do on a regular basis? Where can people find you? That kind of stuff.
Perhaps unlike most of your guests on the program, I'm not a lawyer and I don't profess to be a lawyer. So I'm going to put that out there. But I try to follow laws and dissect laws in my profession as a full-time freelancer. So as a freelance journalist, as part of my one of many responsibilities and kind of tasks that I undertake. So I do a lot of writing and reporting. I've interviewed a lot of prominent people in politics, private sector, different industries, and really have tried to talk about different issues that are not being discussed, including this subject relating to independent contractors. So I love to ask lawmakers, politicians, any prominent people what their thoughts are on the future of work in this country. And I think it's an important discussion to have. And for me, I tackle, I work in politics. I also work a lot in the outdoor industry. I'm an award-winning outdoor writer. I cover original reporting on topics that people don't like to discuss or have a very kind of biased view toward. So I try to dissect a lot of complex issues in layman's terms so people can understand what's going on and how laws or existing laws in this country as it relates to wildlife conservation, energy use, things of that sort are there to promote conservation. And if we steep away from that to promote like preservation, which are two very different things, it could create a lot of complications. I also focus on working with even smaller kind of private clients. I've worked with fly fishing lodges. I've worked with startup companies. I worked with a tech company to help with cybersecurity issues. I've worked on political campaigns. I've done public type of sector speaking opportunities in different state legislatures. I worked in Pennsylvania a few years ago to train them about best practices in social media. So I've done the whole gamut, what you could think of a freelancer does, and I do this on a full-time basis. And my journey as a freelancer, it wasn't like rags to riches immediately. You don't get rich immediately if you're a freelancer. That's something people have to be aware of. It takes a lot of time. And when you grind and when you dedicate a lot of time and you go through challenges, jump through hoops, and struggle a little bit on the way, you really appreciate the success you achieve later on. And so I'm going into my 6th year as a full-time freelancer, and I've seen the fruits of my labor materialize. I've started to get higher dollar clients. I really enjoy the independent contractor status I have because I can tell prospective clients and say, well, I want to work with you on a contractor basis because I would lose out on other opportunities to gain financially. And I don't want to be just tied to you guys. Love you guys, but I want to have like more clients to work with because I like to have a diversity of workflow and diversity of materials to work with. And so for me, I found that to be a really amenable kind of arrangement for me. And I know lots of other people have found that to be a really desirable arrangement for them. Certainly not everyone can succeed as a full-time freelancer. If you don't complete, let's say what they call the 3-year threshold mark successfully, it is really, really hard to pursue this full-time. And even any small business you do, whether you're a one-person business like me, or you're running a brick and mortar small business shop that you eventually want to make into a big business, they say about 3 years is the time to determine whether or not you want to take your business full-time or really go full throttle with it. And so for me, I was able to hit that 3-year mark and just keep on going. And now, despite COVID, I've been able to have steady workflow, have a lot of clients. I have to reject client work now because of my schedule and other commitments that I have.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, a good problem to have. And I will kind of conclude by saying this, that I also have 2 fellowships that I do on top of my existing work. And it's largely compensated fellowships, which are phenomenal. And I had to do some uncompensated fellowship work a little bit recently too. And that's fine because I love doing it. I love growing in my experience and my skill set. And I use those to supplement my business work. And I talk about this freelance issue from a labor policy standpoint in great detail through both of my fellowships with the Independent Women's Forum, which is a great outlet for women. We also have a legal center. I can't speak to the legal center, but I know it's a phenomenal shop that we have. And then with the Young Voices Contributor Program, it's for young professionals who support like liberty-minded ideas, whether they're between the ages of 18 to 35. So I still fit in that age group. Thankfully, I have a few more years. So I'm now into my 2nd semester, you could say, of working with them as a contractor. And same with IWF. So it's great. I get to live out my freelance lifestyle and also try to defend freelancers from a public policy space as well and really fight for them and kind of see unusual coalitions form between Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, independents, socialists, what have you. It's actually one of the few unifying issues that brings people together in these really divided times.